Yo, what is up, guys? We're actually back with a kind of like a what if I have not done in a while. Now, this what if is what if Kakashi adopted Naruto. Now, pretty much I did two parts of this, and then I saw like people didn't like it, so I wanted to focus on other series and put this series on hiatus. But I looked at someone's comment, and basically, it's them asking me to do part 3 of this. I guess they really liked it. But, without further ado, guys, start this what if. Now, we actually resume this what if after, Team 7 have their first encounter with Zabuza. And basically, the masked man would pretty much, last second kill Zabuza, or what would look like, kill Zabuza, or, because Kakashi checked his pulse before he would pass out from the Sharingan overuse, and Team 7 would head towards Tazana's house, and they'd be recuperating after the battle. Now, pretty much after around 2 days, Kakashi would wake up basically saying that that Miss Tracking Ninja was actually working with Zabuza, and after that, he'd basically tell them that they need to start training. Now, after this event would happen, Team 7 would start, training pretty hard, even like 3 times more than their canon counterpart. They're not gonna learn no tree walking. They already learned this. So Naruto would pretty much start getting into more of the Chidori training, since number one, Naruto doesn't need the Sharingan to basically, do good, just be a strong ninja. He has Kurama. Basically, when he has these slit like eyes, it's just him having Kurama in general. He doesn't get the tunnel vision when he uses the Chidori. Now, basically, after this event, like after the 1 week of training, Naruto and Sasuke would start learning the Chidori, with Naruto learning it a little bit faster since he has more potential, but Sasuke would be on his tail because with the rivalry, Sasuke would get as pretty strong as Naruto. Like, they'd be at the same level as with their potential, and Sakura, she'd be okay. She's not her canon counterpart. She's even stronger than her Shippuden self, so that's pretty good. So Team 7 would pretty much, the next day after Naruto would meet Haku, just like in canon. Basically, they talk about how they get power, with Haku telling Naruto that, you get power from, protecting the people you love. So after that, Naruto would still oversleep like in canon, and pretty much Kakashi would let him sleep, and Naruto would wake up to hear yelling, and he would head downstairs and basically save Inari and Tsunami last second before they would pretty much get kidnapped. So he'd cut down that 2 ninja with the Sasuke sword, like the adult Sasuke sword, before he'd pretty much body flicker towards the bridge. Now, once he'd pretty much get to the bridge, he'd come in between Sasuke and Haku. He'd pretty much shatter the Senbone with his sword, just his sword alone, no chakra, just his sword. Now, so basically, this would start the ragdolling session that Naruto and Sasuke do to Haku. Basically, I'm saying that Naruto and Sasuke will easily gutter stomp Haku, with Naruto and Sasuke doing some tag team punches, kicks and slashes. Haku would have cuts all over his body, and he'd be bruised. Now, Haku, in his like bloodlusted mode, would pretty much use the demonic ice mirror jutsu. Now, after this would pretty much mark the start of Naruto Sasuke being trapped inside the ice mirror jutsu, and them trying to figure out by doing some fireball jutsus in combination with the lightning jutsus, because lightning jutsu kind of is explosive towards fire style. So they would try to do this, but it would only melt, like barely scratch the surface of that the ice mirror jutsu, since it is a mirror. You would have to use a lot of power to break it. Now, pretty much they'd be on the defense, so pretty much them trying to block and deflect as many Senbone as possible. But since it's stated that Haku is faster than light speeds, or around light speeds, it would be pretty hard for them to adapt to the Senbone. Now, basically, after a few times of just dodging the Senbone, Sasuke would pretty much push Naruto out the way when Naruto would kind of get tired and, kind of his knees would buckle and he couldn't move. But after this, Sasuke would kind of like push him out the way before copying 1,000 Senbone. And yeah, he would, look like he died before, Naruto would pretty much, have his Zenkai boost, or he'd, basically start using Kurama's chakra. Now, when this would happen, Naruto being trained in the ninja arts would be pretty, easily take down, Haku, since Naruto in the canon verse, just mostly relied on the Kurama's chakra. This time he would easily, foderize Haku. He would pretty much shatter the ice mirror jutsu and, kind of like not even body flicker. This is just his speed itself. This is just basically his instantaneous speed. He would basically instantaneously move behind Haku before raising his blade up in the air before slicing Haku in half. Now, Haku would pretty much die, and Naruto would kind of just like go out of his rage mode before going over to Sasuke and kind of like putting his Kurama's chakra into Sasuke's whole body, kind of like saving him from his death. Now, pretty much after this would happen, they would hear a bunch of chirping birds before they would hear like the penetration of skin. Now, this would be, Kakashi stabbing Zabuza with the Chidori, and that'd be the end of Zabuza's life. Now, after this, Team 7 would quickly deal with Gato and Gato's men, and, they would quickly save the land of the waves from their colonizer, Gato. So once they liberated the village, it would, help Tazuna build the bridge, with Naruto just spamming the clones, trying to help as much as possible, with Kakashi, Sasuke, and Sakura kind of like recuperating and protecting the bridge builder. Now, after they pretty much built the bridge, they would, Team 7 would head out the village after pretty much Naruto being, Naruto's name would be in the name of the bridge, being called the Great Naruto Bridge. So Naruto was a little bit happy by that, and afterwards, they would, Team 7 would head back to Konoha Gakure. Now, once they'd get back, Naruto would be, start stretching his arms and realize that he has not ate ramen in days. This isn't healthy, or to him it isn't healthy. But basically, once he eats some ramen, he'd be pretty tired. He just ate a lot. And usually when you guys eat, you feel pretty tired. So he'd head home after, turning in the mission report and getting the money from the mission. He'd open the door to like the house that he's living with Kakashi, and he'd dive into the bed and pretty much sleep for the rest of the evening and the night. Now, he'd wake up the next day and Kakashi would be knocking at his door, and when he'd open the door, he'd tell Naruto that they'll be heading towards the training ground to start their training for the Chunin exams. Naruto would be like, Chunin exams? They're coming so soon? After this, Kakashi would say, yeah, get ready. After this, Naruto would pretty much put on his clothes, just anything like a normal person wear, kind of like those Anbu style outfit, but he's not part of Anbu, just like the Anbu style pants and just some regular shirt, training shirt. Now, once he and Kakashi would head towards the training ground, basically, Sasuke and Sakura will be waiting there, and Sakura would say, you're late again, and basically they'd start their training. Now, this would pretty much spark a time skip where Naruto and Sasuke will learn a nice technique, and Sakura will be learning more of the elemental manipulation with earth and water, since Sakura just seems the person to know earth style and water style. She would go a little bit into the healing stuff, like reading a few books, but she wouldn't go back to like learning techniques. So after the Team 7's training progression, Team 7 would be walking around the village. Now, they would see Konohamaru, and Konohamaru would be chilling. He'd be vibing, and he'd be walking around until he accidentally bumps into somebody. He would then look up, to raise his head, basically to tell off the person, who just bumped into him. But, he was pretty much like grabbed by the head. Kind of how like older people grab the little kids by their head and lift them up. It's kind of how Yami did to Asta in the first few episodes of Black Clover. Now, Kankuro would pretty much start talking down to, to Konohamaru for basically bumping into him. But out of nowhere, Naruto would unsheath his sword and kind of like move so fast that not even Gar from the tree could see this. And once he'd appear behind the team, a cut would appear over, Kankuro's arm, and basically, Naruto purposely held back, but he'd basically say, "That's just a decimal of my power. You don't want to mess with us." Now, after this, Kankuro would visibly start shaking from the bloodlust coming from Naruto's sword. Not that it's his Zanpakuto, but it's just Naruto's infusing chakra into his sword, so to make it look intimidating. Now, after this, Naruto would but move really fast back to his teammates or his original position, and Gaara would pretty much tell Kankuro to basically put down Konohamaru. Now Kankuro would put down Konohamaru, and basically Gaara would be like the weird brother, basically saying, "I'm gonna kill you, Kankuro," something like that. And then he would turn towards Team 7 and basically ask Sasuke and Naruto for their names. Naruto would say, "I'm Naruto Hatake," and Sasuke would say, "He's Sasuke Uchiha." Now after this, Gaara would say, "Mother wants your blood," before he would basically turn around and Temari and Kankuro would follow behind him, and once they don't leave. Now, after this encounter, Team 7 would head back to their respected homes, with Naruto basically going back to his house that he lives with Kakashi. He would then wave towards Kakashi before basically going back to sleep. They just had 2 weeks training, and Naruto just learned a very technique that, takes a lot of energy. So, he has to rest up. Now, Naruto would head to sleep after, reading a book, and, once he'd head to sleep, he'd wake up around 9:30 a.m. the next morning, and he'd, get his stuff ready for the upcoming events happening this day. Naruto would then, pack up, or not pack up, but basically get ready for waving to Kakashi Sensei and walking out. Now Naruto would walk towards the village before he would see Sasuke and Sakura, and they'd pretty much start walking towards the academy so they can actually participate in the Chunin exams. Now once they head to the academy, they'd be stopped by none other than a weird guy in a green spandex and bushy eyebrows. Now this would be none other than Lee, and pretty much Lee would challenge Naruto, basically saying that he looks like the strongest in this group, and he wants to fight him. Now Sasuke would be a little jealous of this, since they are rivals, and Sasuke would ask, "Why don't you want to fight me?" Lee says, I'll fight you too," and basically Naruto and Lee would start fighting. Now in this timeline, Naruto would pretty much kind of just get into an evenly matched taijutsu battle with Lee, with Naruto pretty much using similar abilities like with the taijutsu as Lee does. Since number one, Kakashi knows up to the 3 gates, and he knows some of the taijutsu that guy uses. So if Kakashi trained Naruto like really early on, then he would have learned, Naruto would have learned some of the taijutsu that guy uses that he taught Lee. So they'd be pretty evenly matched. Now, Lee would pretty much go to basically take off his weights, but Guy would pretty much reprimand him coming from nowhere and basically tell him that, you shouldn't use that unless, it's an emergency, like a life or death situation. Now, after this, Lee and Guy would have their pretty much weird beach genjutsu, every time Lee and Guy have their youth what's it called? I can't remember, but basically they really like to promote the spirit of youth, and they'd have that weird background ocean of waves. Now Naruto, would pretty much see this in 4K, bro. He'd be like, "What am I seeing? What genjutsu is this?" Now, after this, they'd pretty much just walk by them. Team 7 would walk by them, and they would head to the doors. Now, they'd see that door, there'd be a genjutsu with doors to basically confuse them to see which door was which. Now, Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura would just, quickly just walk through the doors, and for some reason, the guards couldn't do anything. It's like something was stopping them. Now, this was actually Naruto's kind of like killer intent, but he was projecting his, killer intent onto the guards so they couldn't do anything because, he'd see that the guards were messing with other people who tried to walk in. So after Team 7 would walk in, this time they wouldn't mess with the sound force, basically saying that we're going to win or something like that. But they would still have their similar conversation with Kabuto, with the ninja cards he showed them, and he showed them like Gaara and Lee. So after this, they would sit down, and basically Ibiki would appear and tell everyone to shut up before he would start the first phase of the Chunin exams. Now pretty much after this would happen, Ibiki would and the other two guards, the gate guards, would walk around giving people their papers to start to write the exam on. Now once Jesus, once Naruto was handed his paper, he would quickly look at it and just, he would close his eye, not literally, but he's pretty smart, so he would quickly just run through this exam so fast, bro. Maybe even like a minute tops that took him to basically do the exams. Now after this, Naruto would pretty much finish the exams, and that would pretty much be the end of it. Now Naruto would finish the first part of the exams, and Sasuke and Sakura would pretty much do what they did in canon, basically cheating, with Sasuke using the Sharingan and Sakura using plot convenience. Sakura's pretty smart, so she's fine. But basically, Team 7 would kind of pass the first part of the Chunin exams with Ibiki announcing about the 10th question. Team 7 would not budge, and all the other teams that left would still leave due to them being pussies. Now, after this would happen, Ibiki would announce that the 10th question didn't even exist and that they all pass. Now, some people would be confused, like Sakura would be like, what do you mean? After the CPQ would be like, you wouldn't want, if you knew you were going on the S-rank mission, you wouldn't want to leave and come back later. No, you would want to do the mission right there. That's what, you need to have the courage to go on that mission. You are, this is the Chunin exams. After this, everyone would get like a brief moment of confidence before basically the window would be kicked down, and there would be none other than Anko Mitarashi. Now this, Anko would say to Ibiki that, you've gotten old. There used to be more people, disqualified. Now afterwards, you tell everyone to meet her at training ground 44, and they would start the second part of the Chunin exams with everyone signing their waivers about if they die, it's not the village's fault, since they don't want to start a war with another village, since other people from other villages are here today, participating in the exams. Now, basically, the exams would start with Team 7 having the Earth Scroll and them needing to get the Heaven Scrolls. Now, they'd be running through the tree, running in the trees, jumping on trees and stuff like that. Kind of how every, Naruto character travels, just jumping from tree to tree. Now, Naruto would say, I gotta take a leak, and pretty much Sasuke and Sakura would be defending Naruto. And pretty much Naruto would be taking a leak when he'd feel a presence behind him. Now Naruto would unsheath his blade before putting a certain lightning jutsu into the blade before using Chidori Stream. He would then turn around and release a lightning wave similar to a 1080 720 pound that Zoro does. And after this, the snake would get cut in half, and a mysterious figure that was on the snake would jump off onto the trees. Now this be none other than the grass ninja lady who they saw before the second part of the exam started. So Sasuke would start getting into a fight with the ninja lady, and they'd be pretty equal until Sasuke would use the ninja wire to tie her to the tree, and he would use the fireball fire dragon jutsu, and a huge dragon would come flying from his mouth into the rope or into the ninja wire, basically making it flammable before basically Sasuke would burn, or what would look like he burned the grass ninja lady to death. But basically, when the ash would clear and the fire would disappear, the grass ninja lady looked fine, but the weird thing is her skin was falling off. Now, after this, Team 7 would be pretty irked out, but it would be revealed as none other than Orochimaru of the Sani. Now, Naruto would pretty much be a little scared. This is Orochimaru. Sasuke, Naruto would tell Sasuke to get behind him or get next to him, and tell Sakura to get behind him. Now after this, they'd be into like a triangle formation, and Naruto would put Chidori into his sword before flash stepping or moving so fast that he came behind Orochimaru. Now Naruto would swing toward his blade towards Orochimaru, and Orochimaru quickly get his sword out of his mouth out of his stomach, wherever it was, and he'd pretty much grab the blade before clashing with Naruto. Now, when he clashed with Naruto, there'd be a crater surrounding them, like under their feet, and they'd start clashing sword to sword. Now, basically Naruto would be using every tactic that Kakashi used them, and Naruto, for some reason, would just stop moving. Now, Orochimaru would run towards Naruto, going to punch him, but when he punched him, Naruto turned into lightning and pretty much electrified Orochimaru before using a water wall, and then using a water style, mud wall, basically kind of like crushing Orochimaru between the two mud walls. After this, Orochimaru would be pretty injured. And if you guys don't know the move I'm talking about the move that Kakashi uses in Jump Force, the R2 circle, where he basically gets in it looks like he's reading his book, but when you hit him, you kind of get, caught in the trap. But that's similar technique. Just search it up. Just say Kakashi's R2 plus circle in Jump Force, and you'll see it. Now, or the lightning shadow clone in Jump Force. But after this, Naruto would severely injure Orochimaru, and afterwards Orochimaru would have to retreat. So after this, Team 7 would progress towards the tower with them still getting they would get the scroll from Orochimaru, since Orochimaru had the Heaven Scroll, so they would manage to get the Heaven Scrolls after Orochimaru turned into snakes. So they'd pick up the Heaven Scrolls and they would head towards the tower before they would summon Kakashi. Now, once they'd summoned Kakashi would congratulate them on what happened, passing. Naruto would tell them that they actually fought Orochimaru. Now Naruto would tell this to Kakashi, and Kakashi would get a little surprised before, he would just quickly return to his normal self and basically say, you can go rest now, you did a good job. Now, after this, he'd pat their heads and basically body flicker towards the Izukage, basically telling him of the news. Now, he'd tell Hiruzen that Orochimaru was here and that they need to upgrade the security for the Chunin exams. Now, after this, Hiruzen would do just that, and pretty much Team 7 would be recuperating or resting up in that rooms for the next 5 days until the third part of the Chunin exams would happen, where Kabuto would still forfeit, and pretty much that would start the third part of the Chunin exams. And without further ado, guys, this will be the end of this episode of part 3 of what if Naruto was adopted by Kakashi, or what if Kakashi adopted Naruto. And without further ado, guys, peace out.